Working in hell. Human incarnation can be ecstatic and glorious, but it can also be, as we all know, difficult, laborious, and sometimes agonizing. Bodily illness and privations can oppress us, and often we must work with mechanical resistance through the endless mundane tasks that are never really completed because others are always piling up. Scarcity of resources, disease, wars, and the long skull shadows of history surround us. If you stop and allow your gaze to be arrested by such realities, you can become paralyzed with dread. Like many, I overcommit myself, and therefore I assume that with the naive overconfidence of the disincarnate, I chose such a challenging incarnation. This assumption may not be provable, but it is empowering and minimizes self-pity and victim poverty consciousness. Taking responsibility for my incarnation, I set to work. Time to bail out the leaky boat and do the best I can with the resources at hand from awakening till bedtime. Get into a rhythm with the work. It is far better to be working in hell than to be unemployed and languishing in hell. Of course, if you can find a better place to live and work, by all means relocate. But wherever you are, there are times when you just have to suck it up and work your way through adverse conditions. So a couple of other things not in the card, speaking off the cuff here, that help me is, so to me there are two ideal kinds of work. One is the creative work, that I'm like doing this right now. Is this play? Is this work? It's very entertaining. It's very engaging. I can get into what Mihai Csikszentmihalyi called flow. And just to give you a quick thumbnail on flow, this is a state where, well, let me tell you how he discovered it, because he was another person from the field of affective or positive psychology that looks into what makes people happy, like Nathan Seligman is another major figure. So he came up with a very elegantly simple experiment. He gave pagers to people in various professions, from drug dealers to business executives, musicians, rock climbers, so on. He wanted to find out basically the way the experiment worked is that a signal would be sent from the University of Chicago, where he was a professor, I guess, and they would get a beep, a page, and they would, at random intervals, and then they just have to write down briefly what they were doing and how happy they felt. He wanted to find out if there was a characteristic state when people reported being the happiest, and he found out there absolutely was. It was when they were in a state called flow. And flow is when you are doing something that is challenging, but you are up to the challenge, like you have an existing skill set to allow you to meet that challenge without feeling like you're totally spazzing out. So if you're an expert skier and you're skiing, you're no doubt in a state of flow. But if it's your first day learning how to ski and you're spazzing out and falling down all the time, you're probably not in a state of flow because your inner critic is going on and you're not able to do it well. So people who can ideally get into states of flow would be like rock climbers, like you can't be thinking about anything else. Musicians, artists. I experience a state of flow a whole lot of the time because when I'm doing stuff that I'm good at, like with writing or speaking off the cuff like this, I can get into it. And another feature of the state of flow, by the way, is it alters your perception of time. Time doesn't drag. It flows. But where you like lose awareness of the passage of time, and in a very pleasant way, so that, for example, one of the people that Csikszentmihalyi found that had the best access to a state of flow was an Hispanic guy who worked at a factory, an assembly line factory, making movie projectors. And the specific task he had on the assembly line, he approached it like an Olympic athlete approaching their event, always trying to get his time down, the time to do his whatever he had to do with the movie projector on the assembly line to what took most people like 4 or 5 minutes. He got down to like, a minute and 45 seconds or something like that, by focusing on the efficiency of every movement as if he were like in a Chinese, a Japanese tea ceremony or something like that, where every movement, was exactly right and precise and so on. And he said he loved his job. It was like a sport. And before he knew it, it was 5 o'clock and time to go home. Then he found that he plateaued at like a minute and 45 seconds. He couldn't improve upon what he was doing. So he just asked for another job on the assembly line and started the process all over again. So if you're trying to do something mundane, but you're trying to do it to the very best you possibly can, then you can make it into consciousness work and get into this highly desirable state of flow. So Gurdjieff, for example, said that he could train anyone to be more conscious if they were really good at anything, even if it was making coffee, because they at least had that stance of like bringing any process to perfection. So the other thing that I do is, to me, there are two highly desirable types of work: the completely creative, completely engaging kind of work where I'm using all of my abilities, and completely mindless, mundane jobs, because then my mind is free. So like most people can enjoy driving if they're not stuck in traffic, and because you kind of do it on autopilot. Another part of your brain kind of does it automatically. You don't have to think about it. Whereas like the what would be working for hell for me would be like if I had to work in a tax office and we're like having to like add up numbers or like fill out mundane paperwork where I'm not good enough at dividing attention and multitasking to be able to really go into my own thoughts while doing something like that. I'm in this claustrophobic reality tunnel where I have to focus on it. So like, for example, when I used to be a school teacher, I loved teaching and interacting with kids, but when it came to grading papers, where it was, illiterate compositions and stuff like that, where they maybe didn't even really want to write anything. That's why I would try and encourage journal writing when I was a teacher more than anything. But where I have to focus on it to give punctuation feedback and stuff like that, that was painful. Because I couldn't think my own thoughts at the same time, and it wasn't so engaging. So when it comes to, I spend a lot of my day, as most of us do, doing mundane tasks, cleaning the house and getting my stuff organized and so forth. All of that can be a totally fun experience if it's mechanical enough that I can just have headphones on and be listening to audiobooks and podcasts and the news and stuff like that. Then it's just I'm moving my body, which is healthy, because writing and doing this, I'm sitting in the chair too much, and my mind is totally engaged passively with the content I'm absorbing. So to me, totally mundane tasks can be perfectly fine. I actually enjoyed being a dishwasher much earlier in my life, especially if there was a rush, because you would be pushed to your limits to move as quickly as possible. It was very mercurial, going at a high tempo and all that kind of stuff. It was actually a lot of fun, and I could still have my own thoughts because it was basically my body doing that. Okay, but there are other times when you just have to suck it up and work your way through adverse conditions, like doing the taxes or in some various of the hellish situations that could happen to any of us in a human life. Feel the solidarity during such times of every living thing on this plane of existence that deals with winter outdoors, famine, drought, illness, oppression, war zones, and obstruction of all kinds. For example, the Bible in Ecclesiastes, my mother called the atheist book of the Bible, though she spoke of it admiringly. For that which befalls the sons of men befalls beasts. Even in the end, one thing befalls them both. As the one dies, so dies the other. Yes, they all have one breath and spirit, so that man has no preeminence over a beast, for all is vanity, emptiness, falsity, and futility. So don't feel that you are the only one being picked on by fate. Acknowledge the hardships, but get to work and see what you can do between now and bedtime.